that is the A66, and if any of you have ever travelled on that, you'll know that it's a really treacherous road. Terrible weather, terrible driving. But it is actually a Roman road, M82, Margery 82, the Roman road connecting York to Carlisle. Now, look at this. It's known as the Rey Cross, and in the 18th century, General Roy had it as a Roman milestone, but it isn't. This is the base. This is part of a cross shaft of a 10th century cross. Nowadays, it sits in this lay-by on the northern carriageway of the A66. But up until 1990, it was a little bit further up there on the other side of the road in the middle of a Roman marching camp. And that marching camp has been described as one of the most impressively defended marching camps in Roman Britannia. But the whole point of these marching camps is that they were temporary. In this video then, we're going to be taking a look at the fantastic, well-preserved Rey Cross Roman marching camp. We'll be considering why was it so robustly defended as a temporary structure, and we'll also be looking at the fascinating idea that the Romans incorporated a prehistoric, a Bronze Age stone circle, a mini Stonehenge, into their camp when they built it. Now that view has been challenged by 1980s experts. We're going to have a look at it and we'll make our own mind up, if you don't mind very much. And look at this. It's Adam Morgan Ibbotson.
And I'm here to put this stone circle conundrum to bed.
So yes, once again, I'm taking the risks so you don't have to. Oh. In 1981, the then poster boy of television historians, Michael Wood, stood next to this Rey Cross on the side of the A66, and he said, "On the top of Stainmore today, by the side of the A66, is the stump of an Anglo Saxon cross." Michael was here in 1981 filming his documentary In Search of Eric Bloodaxe, the last Viking king of Northumbria. And one of the ideas about the Rey Cross is that it was erected there to commemorate his defeat by the Wessex king, Edred. Oh, and incidentally, just for clarity, it's Michael Wood, singular, not Michael Woods. He seems to suffer sometimes from the old Cliff Richards syndrome. Incidentally, don't get excited. I don't think this is anything prehistoric or Roman. About a quarter of Rey Cross was damaged by mining in the 19th century. I suspect just outside the camp, this rectangular building is something to do with that. But as you know, we don't do industrial archaeology on this channel, so I'm not going to be hanging around here. You know, back then in 1981, when Michael was here, he was accompanied by god-awful electronic synthesizer music, low-resolution film footage, filmed from a wobbly helicopter. Let's have a go at doing our modern, technologically advanced version of that. There you go, roll forward 44 years and that's what you get. Maybe I'm the poster boy of TV historians now. Now, Rey Cross is probably a Scandinavian word, and it probably means boundary. So the boundary cross. And up until the early 1970s, Rey Cross did mark the boundary between Westmoreland and Yorkshire. Yorkshire used to come up this high, but they changed it to something really silly. It's so silly, I'm not going to tell you what it is. The connection between Eric Bloodaxe, the Viking king of Northumbria, and the cross has never been proven. It's more likely a boundary cross dated to about 946 AD, 950, something like that, denoting the boundary between the kingdoms, the English kingdom of Northumbria and the kingdom of Strathclyde. awful amount of litter up here. Presumably that's blown in off of the A66. I want to show the best of Britain, particularly for our growing number of overseas viewers, but unfortunately here, that is the reality. Now, I ought to also point out, if we have any pedants watching, that the Michael Woods recreation is not pinpoint accurate, because when they widened the A66 in 1990, they moved it. They moved Rey Cross out of the Roman camp. It's now in a lay-by further to the east of the camp. It was when Michael was here, it was actually on the southern side of the road, so it would have ended up in the central carriageway of the dual carriageway, which I guess is how they justified that slightly sad decision. However, the northern carriageway of the A66 that we look at here today is still on the Roman line, and that tells us something important about the road. There's a sort of a kink has been identified in it, which shows clearly and firmly that the Romans built that road through the camp later. So the Roman marching camp here at Rey Cross was first, the road came a bit later on. They're both believed to be 1st century. Whoa, nice tituli. This first tituli, as you meet the camp from the lay-by, is impressive. I'm demonstrating it here, walking out of the camp, to give you a sense of scale of this as a defensive mechanism. And then there are well-preserved stretches of ramparts on this eastern side, although the rounded northeastern corner has disappeared into the bog. LiDAR shows the odd shape of the camp squeezed onto the edge of the hill here. The surviving gates show well, as do the tituli and the relationship with the original Roman road. We've then got a good stretch of surviving northern rampart. Despite all the cars tearing through this place, it's still slightly scary, and you can't help but think that nobody would hear you scream. Nice tituli indeed, shapely. A tituli. It's not a tumulus, as was marked on some of the Victorian Ordnance Survey maps. It's a tituli. The idea of this is you plonk these in front of the gates into the marching camp, and it slows down anybody that wants to attack you and doesn't mean you any good. They have to traverse around this, giving the soldiers in there the opportunity to deal with them. It has been posited that this Rey Cross marching camp was thrown up by Cerialis' troops after he'd dealt with Venusius over at Stanek, and he's now setting off over the Pennines to deal with any troublesome Brigantes on the western side of things. So we're talking sort of 70, 72 AD, somewhere in that sort of region. So could this marching camp have actually been home temporarily to that legendary 9th Legion as they were heading off to join up with the 20th? I'll use the new Pocket 3 optical zoom for this. Hopefully you can see this prominent bank on the northern side of the camp, and as I come down here, it has disappeared. Now, some people have proposed that they didn't bother building a full bank on the northern side because the bog was deterrent enough, but I think that's absolute nonsense. You can clearly see, although it's very low, it won't come out on camera, you can clearly see that it did carry on. It has literally just sunk. The risks I take for you lot, I'm in the bog now, and the bank is starting to reappear. Just behind me there are the faint traces of the 3rd tituli on the northern side. So there were 3 gates on this side. Now there are 2 on each of the other sides. But there were originally more gates, and obviously a gate was created when they built the Roman road through it. I'm at the northwest corner now. The bank has reappeared quite prominently. Don't know if you can see that, turning off down there. So was this home to a 6,000 strong legion on their way to deal with someone like this? And if you think that AI image was bad, take a look at this one when I asked the system to provide me with a 21st century politically correct Roman centurion. I suppose in the perverse world of AI, by making a centurion a woman, that is being diverse. But in actual fact, they produce something which is completely sexist and stereotypical. And here's what AI thinks the 9th Legion looked like on the Stainmore Roman road. I got fed up with this, so here's my grandson Finley's Iron Age sword. I know what I prefer. It's that mid-roll bit in the video where I just remind you that if you like this channel and you haven't subscribed, please do so, because the more subscribers that we get, the more YouTube will promote the channel. And on that sort of subject, over to this chap in the studio, or should I say institute. Hello again. This is where you can become a member of the Institute of Amateur YouTube Antiquarians, and for just £5.49 per month, you will receive a monthly video exclusive to your eyes only, along with early access to our regular content and your name on screen. Alternatively, for just £3.99 per month, you can become an antiquarian for weekly status updates, loyalty badges, and some truly terrible emojis. By joining us, you will be helping us in our mission, whatever that is. What's not to like? I'm temporarily interrupting the survey of the marching camp because we need to talk stone circles. And for that, we need Adam Morgan Ibbotson, but he doesn't seem to have parked in the lay-by.
Whoa, Darren, that is a cracking pair of tituli you've got there.
But Adam, there's only one. Anyhow, I've got a stone circle to show you here, and the 1980s experts are saying that it's a fortuitous scatter of stones. Let's go and take a look to it. Actually, Adam, this is a nice tituli here, but there's an absolutely cracking pair of them over that side. I'll show you if we get time later. Okay, Adam, so here we are. The stone circle is in front of us. I'll give you a little bit of a lowdown. It's appeared on the scheduled records for ever and a day. It actually appears in the title of the HER record. It's Roman marching camp and prehistoric stone circle. In the detail, it then refers to it as a Bronze Age stone circle, but it then goes on to say that in the 1980s, some experts came along and they decided that it wasn't a prehistoric monument. Their arguments included things like, by their count, there were only 8 stones that were able to be stood upright, and they felt that because of the way it lines up with the gate in the marching camp to the north here behind us, that the Roman roads within the camp would have ploughed straight through it if it was already here. Now, as far as I know, they didn't find any roads in this camp. All we have is from 1932, Richmond sketched out his view of what the roads might have been like. What are your initial thoughts?
Well, my initial thoughts are I couldn't do what he just did on my channel, because that was... How do you remember all that?
Oh, I'm a professional.
Well, my initial thoughts
I like having you on the channel. You say things like this.
Initial thoughts are that we're looking at possibly the Stonehenge of the Pennines right here.
That sounds like a good title for this video.
No, it's not. It's probably a early Bronze Age embanked stone circle of some variety, erring on maybe something Neolithic, but I don't know, maybe we should go and have a look at the thing.
Yeah, let's have a look.
That's the best way. Look at things.
And decide.
And decide.
Right, budge up then, Adam. You've had a good look at it. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I think it is a stone circle. I'm putting money on that. Write in the comments if you think this isn't a stone circle, and I will argue with you.
Yeah, trust me, they will.
I'll be in there arguing, like, hey, it's definitely a stone circle. It just has the vibe, it has the odour, smells right.
Now, what about the location? Because you've got this amazing view shed up here, haven't we?
This is exactly the kind of place you get early Bronze Age stone circles. Not mid Bronze Age, not Neolithic. It is moorland landscapes like this where people farmed. It's moorland landscapes like this that people did funerary activity, i.e. funerals. And it was in ring cairns, in embanked stone circles that you get from that period, that people were cremated and stuck in barrows, which I know there are a few on this moor.
Yeah, absolutely. No, so I want to believe this is a stone circle, for really because of our Roman story that we're telling here today. Although this looks desolate and awful, and it is, this is the highest point of Stainmore, but geographically, this is the easiest way to get over this treacherous set of hills here. Now, MC Bishop was one of those authors that proposed this idea that the Romans used existing prehistoric routes So it makes sense to me that when they were heading over here, this was the place to put their marching camp, and then later on it was the place to put their road, because it feels to me that they would be following some form of prehistoric trackway.
Not to mention that Roman roads do very often pass by prehistoric sites,
yes,
especially stone circles.
And they respect them as well, I think.
Respect them, exactly. They don't smash through them, they don't demolish them. Castlereagh has a temporary marching camp next to it.
So I think we're concluding that the 1980s experts are wrong.
Wrong. So what we have here, this behind me, which I don't know if it shows up very well, but it is a mound, supposedly, and it sits in the southeastern edge of the circle. I'm not sure if it is necessarily a mound. This could be what's known as a concentric stone circle, which is a early Bronze Age stone circle with stones around this size and a diameter around this size, which has a curved barrow in the centre of it. Sometimes, quite often, these stone circles had later mounds dumped on them, either clearance cairns or later mid to late Bronze Age barrows, which were generally smaller. And yeah, that could have hidden an inner curved cairn. I know there are a few stones in the centre of the circle. That might be a bit of a crazy theory, but you never know with these things because they're not excavated. Until we get some people up here, some beards, as some people say, to actually dig the thing up, we might never know what this thing was. But I can tell you right now, it is a stone circle.
Time for one final more demonstration with regards to the circle. So I'm looking straight across at one of the northern gates in the marching camp. I'm in the circle there. Now, if I run over here, and I must give Adam credit for noticing this, we've got two stones that appear to have been moved out of the circle. Possibly then, rather than destroying the stone circle with their castramentation road system within the fort, as has been proposed as an argument against it being prehistoric, the idea that the Romans would have destroyed it with their roads, but perhaps they just moved a couple of stones out the way so they could put their road through. I'm on the ramparts of the marching camp in the southwestern corner where the road is cutting through behind me there. And thankfully, it is really well preserved here, despite all of this. I hope you can see it. This horrendous mine working that happened in the 19th century. That wouldn't have been there when this place was first surveyed in the 18th century by the wonderfully named General Roy. I mean, General Roy, Adam Morgan, Ibbotson, they've all got better antiquarian names than me, haven't they? Look at this wonderful gate. Hopefully you can see the tituli there as well. I'll climb up here as a little demonstration. And then look at this. We've got loads of stone in the bank. So they threw this thing up and they incorporated loads of stone in it as well. It's a serious thing. The dimensions at the bottom of the base apparently are around about 36 feet. I have just risked life and limb to get across to the small section of the southern side of the fort, which is separated now by the dual carriageway. On this southern side, we have the highest surviving rampart height. It must get to nearly 6 feet on this side. There are two gateways and both have visible tituli. I'm stood on the eastern of the southern tituli, on the southern side of the fort. And it's here where you get an understanding of the awkward trapezoid shape of the fort. It's literally crammed on the edge of the hill here. The ground falls steeply away on this side. But interestingly, this is where they would have got access to the river for water. Many people ask me, what was the terrain like in Roman times? And we think the high moorland was broadly similar to what we see today, a bit less manicured, a few more trees perhaps, but this valley that we're looking down on, I suspect would have been quite heavily wooded in Roman times. I've mentioned the theory that the camp was thrown up by Cerealis' troops in the latter part of the 1st century, sort of 72 AD, heading west after battling at Stanek. Well, there are another two known marching camps on the course of this route to Carlisle. Crackenthorpe shows up really well on Phil Barrett's LiDAR. Plumpton Head, however, is just confusing. That's your homework this week. See if you can find it. But look at the striking similarities in construction between these three camps. Similar acreage and all with the titular style of gate. We can't say for sure, and we must acknowledge that M82 as a road later went on to include a whole series of signal stations and the marvellous Maiden Castle fortlet, of course. Plus, we have forts, Levatris and Verteris at either side of the pass. But the robust nature of the construction here suggests a serious threat and the need for potential retreat. In terms of afterlife, Rey Cross Camp has revealed 3rd and 4th century pottery, plus there's a later signal station in there somewhere. Do you remember those building remains outside the camp that I airily dismissed as mining related? No? Well, I checked on Historic England. I had a little bit of a niggle about those, and they are indeed a Romano-British settlement after all. I think the potential of this compound for farming may have played a part in that being sited there. And then beyond the Roman period and right up to 1990, it's easy to imagine the draw of these high ramparts for shelter in such a desolate place. Maybe Michael Woods popped to open a flask here. Who knows? I'd like to thank Adam for helping out this week. It's been great. And he has very kindly offered to do the outro for me. I do sometimes have issues with those. And he's assured me he's going to wholeheartedly promote my channel.
Everybody, if you would like to subscribe to what is the greatest archaeology YouTube channel on, well, the internet, I can think of no better place to smash that like button than Adam Morgan Ibbotson. The place for prehistory, the place for excitement, entertainment, all around goodness here on YouTube. So please do smash, hit that like button and subscribe. Thank you all for watching.